I guess enjoy the cold while it's here, right?
Yeah, right. All right. Hey, actually, it just immediately popped up and we're good to go. And we're in excellent condition. Okay. Maybe. We'll see what happens. Stream health. I'm going to get some things up really quick so we can monitor, and we're good to go. You're live.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. How are we doing today? Oh no, I just realized that my chat boxes and stuff won't work. Oh well, I have my chat monitoring on. We're fine. But yes, today is the official debut of Gamers Cafe. How do you feel about that, Casey?
Ooh. Pretty cool, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like talking, so I'm here to say words.
we all like talking. And I'm doing
Not
some.
Chris.
Chris is a bit different. He's got some work related things going on, so I can't blame him too much.
Get your priorities straight, Chris. Gaming first, then
Yes,
work.
if he's not watching this right now, then he's wrong. Let's start off the good old conversation. What games are you playing? What do you suggest? What do you want to talk about?
So, like I was saying before we started, I'm super into roguelites lately. I am fascinated by them, and also I think it's really interesting how they have exploded into the gaming marketplace, and they're doing really well. Like I've been playing, I mean, like a lot of them, stuff like Gungeon, Hades, um, Noita, um, Dead Cells. There's a ton of them. Risk of Rain, all these games, and I mean they're really interesting because of the procedural generation. They all have a different game style. Like Risk of Rain is like a third-person shooter. Hades is like a Diablo-style dungeon crawler. Dead Cells is a Metroidvania, but they're all using this sort of procedural generation to create really addictive gameplay experiences, and they're all from indie studios. These games all cost like $20 or less, but like I'm getting as more content out of these games than I get out of like a AAA game. Like,
Yeah, because I mean, indie developers have more freedom. When you look at how it goes, everything about an indie game has more freedom. You're not being restricted by deadlines and constant release cycles and things like that. And that's a lot of the benefit from being an indie developed studio, is that you can just develop what you want.
right.
So you're going to get that content, whereas AAA games like Fallout 4 are restricted based on deadline.
Yeah, and they're restricted based on the publisher wants.
Well, I mean,
They don't have that creative freedom.
the best example that I can say about that is look at what happened with Cyberpunk 2077. It got pushed
Right.
and pushed and pushed, and when it finally released, it was so buggy and broken that everybody hated it because of that fact.
Yeah, and also because it got hyped up to be like, this is the next gen best game ever. Like, this is going to be how Halo Combat Evolved was in 2001. Like, this is going to completely like rewrite gaming as we know it. And also Keanu Reeves, Big Chungus, like, woo! And
Chad
then
move right there, Chad move.
and
Yeah.
then it was like super disappointing. I think the game itself was like all right for like, like a first person like RPG in the similar vein to the Fallout games with the levels of content and like what you can do, but it was just a meme because it was completely broken on last gen systems and you needed like a really good PC rig to run it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of the same kind of Fallout issue that they had with the original Destiny release too. Destiny tried to push back at, and maintain the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 both can play, and it really hurt the people who were upgraded to the PlayStation 4, but it really made the game experience plausible, or I guess nice for PlayStation 3 players, where it didn't tailor to the new gen. Whereas this one is kind of the opposite, where it's tailoring to the new gen and not listening to the old gen. So
Yep.
there's constant issues there. But
yeah, I mean, I was excited for Cyberpunk. I haven't played it yet because like after what happened, I'm just like, I kind of just want to like wait until the kinks are ironed out, and I don't know how long that will take. And then one of the best games I played last year was Hades, which was an indie game roguelike, and that game ended up like I don't think Cyberpunk was nominated for any awards at the Game Awards, and Hades was nominated for Game of the Year, and it won like Best Sound Design, and it was nominated for a bunch of other stuff. So,
yeah,
I mean, you just goes to show like no, like even if your game is the biggest, chungiest Keanu Reeves bullshit ever, it's not going to get the prestige of something that like doesn't have that corporate development cycle.
yeah, and I mean, but I mean, you're gonna say shit about me bringing it up, but look at the massive success that Valheim has reached. I know that it's fucking it's been over talked and over abused, but it is an impressive game for what they developed. It's a 5-person team that developed a game that sold over 5 million copies,
Oh yeah, that is crazy.
and it's getting huge success from it. And I mean, that's the same kind of process behind what like Hades did and things like that. And honestly, I think the indie development teams are taking everything by storm because of the quality that they're pushing out versus the quantity. And I honestly think it would be better to work an indie development team right now than it would be a AAA.
Oh yeah, and like early access has become like so it's become such a good thing for these games, for the indie games, and I feel like early access and stuff kind of used to be a meme and like Steam Greenlight because there were all these like really low quality games,
Yeah.
but I feel like people have moved past that a little bit, and I'm not hearing about like the Steam Greenlight. I don't even know if they still do that, but like the
Steam Greenlight still is a thing. It's just hard to get into it. So
yeah, but like these games, like you said, Valheim has sold like 5 million copies, and then Noita is a game that's made by three Finnish developers. It's sold over 2 million copies, and before it even released, because of early access, and because the developers for these games, um, they're really like responsive to the community. You know, like they talk to the streamers who are playing their games because there's only 5, only 10 of them, like sometimes at most 20 developers on these games, and so they really care. They're not like there's no level of entitlement where like we are above everybody, we're like celebrities or like we're some hot shots because we're making this AAA game. They're like, this is their whole life and it's what they're putting their souls into. So they want to see how the community is handling it, and they respond to the community. They watch streamers. They give the game away for free to streamers while it's in early access, and then they say like, please play this and please let us know if something's not right with it.
yeah, yeah, and I love it. That's one of the things that I love about being the indie developer. Whereas like AAA titles, yeah, they might give them out to the people who are the big, if I could talk, big streamers and YouTubers, things like that, so that they can get their first opinions and things like that. But it doesn't do anything for the quality of the game when you give out a game to 5 people, whereas these lower indie developers are giving them out to lower end, and they're getting much more feedback about things that are wrong or things that are doing
Yeah,
well, things like that. And
yeah. The big developers are just trying to use it as advertising, I think.
yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is, and that's why they're trying to get it to people like Markiplier and Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie, if he was still doing it, things like
Yeah,
that. And I mean, 28 million people potential views. I mean, I can see why. It makes sense. It makes sense. But I have been recently going back to a AAA game that I didn't expect to be playing again. Was Days Gone. That's where I've been at lately, and that game is absolutely just. There's so many things that I could nitpick about it. It's bad. Like you, my biggest pet peeve, the motorcycle in that game is absolutely horrendous. You drive forward 2 miles an hour, hit a cable, your bike goes flying 400 feet, and you get taken. You take an epic load of damage, and you basically just die because you hit a wire at 2 miles an hour. It's just like, okay, come on now. This is absolutely ridiculous. Why would they overlook something like that where they didn't do a check or something along those lines to make sure that you're not going faster than X or whatever? And I could argue this point all day, but it's a fantastic game to play, and it's definitely one of those that push the limitations of the PlayStation 4. And if we want to talk just purely computer games, I have a plethora of them that we can talk about. So, because I've also been playing a lot of Hunt Showdown and Escape from Tarkov. Well, I've been kind of playing Escape from Tarkov. It's been fighting me every step of the way. But Hunt Showdown is a fantastic game because it puts you in the shoes of a hunter that gets dropped into this area. You got to kill a monster and kill other hunters that are trying to kill you. Pretty simple concept. Get in, kill, get out. Easy. But the way that they built it, and one of the changes that they've recently made, is they've added different ammo types. And that, to me, has broken the game. Hunt Showdown is completely broken, in my opinion. Completely. Since they've done the new ammo types, you can get one-tapped from insane distances away, and it's not balanced in any way, shape, or form. And it just breaks the game completely, because you can walk into an area and a guy can hit you with a crossbow that has a shotgun round on the end of a bolt that just destroys you no matter how much health you have.
And ooh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, and it's
always fun getting one-shotted.
It's the best. It makes you feel really good when you do all this work, you get into the end, and then somebody just one-taps you with a fucking crossbow. It's like, come on. This is bullshit. I don't know. It is one of those things that I feel like they released it too soon. They pushed it out and they didn't balance it and play test it enough, and it hurts. It hurts the game.
Yep, definitely.
Hey, what's up, Bang? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the podcast. How are we doing today? But I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of games that are taking a lot of quality control reasons and just sacrificing them to push out content, and it hurts because it's ruining the gaming market.
I think that developers, and I think it's the more important ones are the publishers, are starting to get a little bit more wise to the fact that they're kind of just shooting themselves in the foot, and that people would rather wait for a quality product than have the new hotness right away, because you have been seeing delays a lot more.
Yeah.
With AAA games, which is a good thing. I'm like, dude, delay
it. Fucking kick that shit back 3 years and let it go.
I'm like, as long as you're communicating, because it sucks when a developer doesn't communicate and then they announce a game and you don't hear about it for 5 years, and it's like, are you still even making this game? And then it's like, they did make it, and then it can still feel rushed sometimes. Like, that's how Final Fantasy 15 was. But as long as they communicate and they're like, we have to keep this in the oven, everybody's fine. Like, they did that with Halo Infinite, and that was supposed to be a launch title for the Series X, and then they're like, we're going to delay it a whole year, but look, like, the Series X is still sold out in every single store right now. So, like, that really affect your bottom line? Like, no,
not even in the slightest. And that's the beauty of it, is if they just tell people what's going on, people will understand. And they let the community, like, the release for Cyberpunk 2077 was so bad, and one of our actual previous one before we kicked over to Gamers Cafe, when we were back on Gamer Garbage, was Cyberpunk be dying. Love the bug compilations on YouTube. Yeah, they're pretty funny. But one of the big things that hurt it is that they let the community dictate the push of the game. And the community has no idea what's going into that game. Like, recently with our school project that we've been doing, we've ran into a series of just unexplained bugs and issues. Worked perfectly fine up until we implemented something new and it broke everything.
Yep.
And that's things that Cyberpunk ran into and said, hey, we want to delay it again. And then the community said no. They said, fine, here you go. And now they have all these issues. And they have a lot of bad rapport for it. And If they would have just been like, no, we need to fuck off, it would have been a lot better in the end. And I think they would have gotten more sold copies.
Oh yeah, and the game would have had prestige. The game is not prestigious right now. Like a lot of people, like in the in the YouTube community and like all the sort of content creators and thought leaders are like looking down on that and treating it like a Bethesda game.
Yep. Oh my god, the Bethesda releases are the worst, absolute
Yeah,
worst.
Bethesda's just a joke now.
But I don't
They're just a joke.
understand why. They have one of the biggest development teams behind every game.
Dude, they're just destroyed by greed and like corporate bullshit. Because like, I mean, and it used to be that their games could be buggy, but we didn't care because they were so good and there was so much content and they were so revolutionary. But now, like, you know, any game, like any like not even like a triple A, like a double A or like single A game developer can make a huge game like that. Like, yeah, it takes a couple years, but like you can make a game with as much content as Skyrim and have it be without bugs,
Right.
like something like The Witcher 3. Like when The Witcher 3 came out, like
So
CD Projekt
buggy.
Red, right, but that game like that game has a way better pedigree than Skyrim
Yeah,
and
and
Bethesda games.
because they definitely pushed it had bugs. Yes, there was a whole lot of texture issues and a whole lot of loading issues, but it had the bugs, but the game itself, the full core concept of the game itself kept you away from those bugs. You didn't care. You're like, yeah, it's a bug, but it's not game breaking. Whereas if you get a releases like what happened with Fallout 76, Fallout 76 definitely was a thorn in everybody's side when it first released. Apparently, it's better now. I haven't tried it. Fang said they think they got a lawsuit last that you heard. I don't remember, but yeah, man, it's weird. It's strange that that company is still going. And it hurts my feelings because it's just I don't want them
It's
to
because
fail. I just want them to take the time to do what they're supposed to do
they
before the
could
release.
exist forever on Skyrim money. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, it's a meme that like you can play Skyrim on a toaster. You know, you can play it on your smart fridge. And like they've joked, like Todd Howard joked about that at E3 one year. So it's like they're just that game is printing money for them.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
and like when
100%. It's a perpetual money machine
and
because
then when people keep buying stuff, like people still bought Fallout 76 even though it was so bad. And they're like, okay, well, we might be getting bad press, but we still make money. And at the end
yeah,
of the day, like maybe some people care, but like the people who are in charge at the boardroom table, they don't care what the press looks like
they just
as
want
long as
that
they're making
money.
money. Yeah. So it's
So,
like people need to stop just buying these bad games too. Like people
well,
need to get educated on
okay, so that I can see where you're coming at, but that's also a double-edged sword because you're looking at it as a sense of if people stop buying these bad games, we don't know if they're bad before they release. You know what I mean? Because they don't show you the bad parts of a game. They just show you all the good parts whenever they're on their E3 press releases and commercials and trailers and all that fun stuff. So that they base it off the assumption that it's going to be good. And that's a trust that is built from Bethesda before it turned into what it is now. And honestly, it's just a big stain on the company itself because if you look at things like Oblivion and Morrowind, those games released and they were phenomenal. They didn't have they had bugs. Every game has bugs and you can find them all, but they did a better job at getting rid of the game breaking bugs and they turned it into something that was amazing. And those are what built a lot of what Bethesda actually is. And that series is never going to die. And I mean, if you look at things like ESO and things like that, that one actually released relatively well. So it's not
right.
their first time dabbling into network-based gameplay.
I think that was developed by a third party.
I
Like,
think so too. I think it was developed by the same people who developed there's another really similar game out there. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, I think you're right. It was third party.
Yeah, because Bethesda is owned by Microsoft now, which is weird. But oh yeah, it was developed by ZeniMax Online Studios.
That's what it was.
Yeah, but I think Bethesda used to be is like owned by somebody else. I don't know if it was ZeniMax or something. It was like the creators of Farmville or something weird. But now Bethesda got bought by Microsoft, which is also weird.
Yeah, it's strange, but it is.
But it's like Bethesda themselves, like it's when they are trying to make it's because they just made a lot of bad decisions, like sticking with that engine, that like really old game engine that
Yeah,
like
nobody
I
uses
don't know
anymore.
if Morrowind was made on it, but I know that Oblivion was made on it, and then they tried to make Fallout 76 with it because it's like it's not like that company is completely incompetent because they own id Software, who makes Doom, and Doom is amazing.
Yeah. Well, let's get off of thrashing Bethesda for a minute. We could talk about that
It's so
literally.
easy
Yeah,
though.
we could talk
It's
about
so
it all day.
easy.
But let's move to something like Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil series that came out. Now I know there's a lot of I guess conflict here because they released Resident Evil 7, then they did 2 remakes in the middle of 2 and 3, and now they're releasing Village, which is coming out next month. Are we in April? No,
We are
we're
not in April
March.
yet.
No, I think it's March 21st is the release date, or May 21st is the release date, I think. But they're coming out with that now. That Capcom went out of its way, and they created the RE engine. And the RE engine is by far one of the best engines I have ever seen for realistic graphics as far as lighting, texturing, movement, animations, things like that. And it's fantastic. I love everything about the RE engine. And they're moving in a right direction with continuing a series that should not die. The Resident Evil series can always live on forever. Always, because everybody loves zombies. I don't think there's one person out there that, even though they might say they hate zombies, wouldn't sit down and watch a good zombie movie. And I mean,
Right.
look at the rapport and stuff that things like the Walking Dead series has gotten. And that has got a huge following behind it. It did kind of die around like season 6. Everyone loves the hot vampire lady. Can't wait for everyone to die multiple times just to look at her. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, what Capcom has done with Resident Evil is really good to see because I mean, I think while I kind of liked the Resident Evil games people didn't like Resident Evil 5 and 6 because they were co-op and I was like want games to play with my girlfriend. They were definitely kind of ridiculous and like just full of memes with like how they became just like crazy action, like Michael Bay Transformer movie level tier stuff. But Capcom, those games still did really well. Like I think Resident Evil 6, while it was kind of got like really mixed reviews, I think it has like a 60 on Metacritic. It sold millions of copies.
Yeah.
So Capcom could have been like, "Oh, well, who cares if our reviews are bad? We're raking it in." And
Yeah,
they
but
didn't do that.
yeah, they
They
flipped
like
it
they
completely on its
listened.
head. Yeah, they
Because
flipped
they
it
went from Resident Evil
completely.
6, which was the epitome of like popcorn movie garbage, and then they went to Resident Evil 7, which was like a real good horror game, and they completely changed it around. They went from third person to first person, and they just kept a few themes of Resident Evil, but they just completely rebuilt it with the
Yep.
new engine. And it's like that was a great move on Capcom's part.
Yeah,
And
and it's
Capcom has just been killing the game ever since they decided to do that.
yeah. I mean, well, you say killing the game, but let's hit the two that are the controversial subject here. Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3 remakes. Resident Evil 2 remake, everybody has met with, from what I can tell, is high praise. But Resident Evil 3 remake was garbage. Complete and total garbage. It was not done the best. It seems like it was extremely rushed and they just pushed it out to get the extra little money. But I can agree with that if that's like it wasn't a full price game. So
Yeah, I think that should have been a $20 game.
Yeah,
I think if it was a $20 game, it would have been a completely different story.
yeah. If they release it for $20 just to make a quick buck and said, hey, this is a quick, like throwback to Resident Evil 3. Enjoy, have fun with the new Nemesis, which is just a reskin Tyrant and slightly different actions that they can take. Then yeah, I could see it. But they released it for way more than it should have been, and it also, didn't do too well. A 4-hour game that definitely should have been priced way different. But then now they're releasing Village, which if you look at Village, which oof, the 8-foot tall lady, good God, that's catching some praise from a lot of people, and
Yeah.
I don't understand why, but apparently people like big women. So we can get onto that subject later, but it's getting met with high praise because they went back to what they did with 7, and everybody just either gave it huge praise on 7 because 7 was fantastically done. It kept you interested in the story. It kept you interested in what was going on with all the little niche horror effects. Jack was amazing to fight, even though you had to fight him over and over again. She can crush you. That's all everyone needs. But it is weird to think about how much they've changed the game, but it's still the same core. Because the original Resident Evils, like the actual OG ones, like they had the fixed camera angles and was beautiful. They had those high resolution backgrounds that were pre-rendered. The gameplay itself kept you interested with the storyline. The combat wasn't overwhelming. It was fantastic. And then they brought that over into 7, where you're not constantly fighting off hordes of shit like what you did in 6 and 5. And that's the one thing about those two that I absolutely hated, was the hordes. And then you had the people that fell in love with it because it was more action based, and I think that's where it came from. But then you come back into Resident Evil 7, which goes back to its horror aspect, and then Resident Evil 8, which I will be playing very heavily, will be one of those things that it's just like, this is going to keep a good trend going. It's just, I don't think it's going to be held for very long, because a lot of people are going to get exhausted with the constant slow pace of a horror game, and then they're going to release something else that's faster paced.
Yeah, well, Capcom has really turned it around, because like around the time that Resident Evil 7 came out, which was, I mean not 7, Resident Evil 6, which was in 2012, they were releasing a lot of really bad games back then. Like they completely messed up. I think it was Street Fighter 4 or Street Fighter 3. I think it was Street Fighter 4, and they were really shit in the bed. And then they have completely turned it around, and like they have all these really good franchises: Devil May Cry, Monster Hunter, Street Fighter. They completely turned it around with Resident Evil, and like they messed up the Resident Evil 3 remake, but I feel like compared to what a lot of other studios have done, I feel like that's not that bad.
Well, I mean, we could look at the snafu. Like, if you want to talk about bad, like, choices based on development, we could look at like things like Death Stranding. Death Stranding was an abysmal game. It was boring. A lot of people gave it praise because it was new and inventive, but it was boring. You literally are a delivery person moving from place to place, dropping off stuff and activating stones. It's
the ultimate walking simulator.
It really is, and it hurts because I was excited about Death Stranding, but the excitement...
They made it look so interesting. It was like Alien vibes, like the movie Alien, like, or Prometheus, like really, really interesting. Like I watched the previews and stuff, and I'm like, this game looks next level, man. And then it was a Kojima game, so it had that pedigree.
Yeah, and that pedigree is what made it ride out, and millions of copies got sold and returned. There was so many complaints about that game whenever it came out because you literally do nothing. There is no real action involved. It's a lot of stealthing around and just avoiding things, and then when you actually do get to a point of action, it's over in seconds.
Yeah, I never played the game. I watched reviews and I was like, I'm good. If I care about the story, I'll watch like a compilation of the cutscenes on YouTube.
I gave it the good old college try. I put some effort into it. I put hours into the game, and it just never hit home. Whereas like things like Days Gone, I've put hours upon hours into that game, and I'm always finding new ways to entertain myself in it, whether it's taking down hordes or just clearing out nests, doing missions, whatever it is. That game just doesn't. Death Stranding just doesn't have enough in it to keep my interest, and that's where a
Yeah.
lot of the problem was. And then they had this whole like weird mechanic where you could like stumble and fall over if your bag was too
Yeah, you got to
heavy,
stack all your
and
stuff, stack all the stuff, and play Tetris with it, and then keep your balance.
yeah, and I honestly would just go find ways to fall down cliffs. So
Yeah, they tried to be too innovative, and then ended up innovating nothing and being really boring.
I completely agree with that exact statement. I mean, it could have had a lot of merit if they had just made some minor adjustments. But back onto, some of those indie games that we were talking about, I've recently rediscovered some of the older games of the generation. Let's talk about the uprising of Tomb Raider, because everybody knows Tomb Raider. That game originally started with an indie development team and then became a AAA title very quickly, and then Tomb Raider evolved pretty heavily. So you look at the old original, triangle boob version of the really, really old generation models, and a lot of people gave that game a lot of shit for what it was, but it was insanely innovative for its time. Same thing with the concept of Resident Evil. Completely innovative, and that it drew millions of people in. And that innovation with how they did the gunplay, the environments, your exploration, the boss fights that you had to do, things like that is what really drove that to what it is now. And then if you look at the newer Tomb Raiders, they really went back and captured a lot of the feeling that you had from the original Tomb Raider, but added more cinematic to it. And I think it did the game justice, and a lot of people don't agree.
I haven't played the new Tomb Raiders.
You should.
I think they look really good.
Yeah.
I like the gritty aesthetic. I feel like that's what Tomb Raider should be. I don't think it should be like a cartoony sort of Indiana Jones style romp. I remember there being drama about shrinking the boob size.
That didn't make any sense. I don't quite understand that one too much, but I don't know. A lot of people say that the new Laura Croft is not a good Laura Croft, and I absolutely disagree.
I think she looks great.
Yeah. But big boobs, that's all that matters, right? But we I don't know, it's just weird looking back at the way that games have developed over time and seeing where they're at now versus what they were, and still looking back at the old ones and going, man, that was a fantastic game. Like looking at all the Metroids ones, like they revamped Metroid and it turned out trash. And then you look at the old ones and they're just like, man, this is a fantastic game. It literally has its own category of Metroidvania.
Yeah, I don't know why Nintendo feels like they don't want to make 2D Metroid games that much anymore, or at all. They made a remake of Metroid 2, which was really good. It was for I didn't play it. It was for the 3DS, but it was like that classic style of Metroidvania. And then obviously Metroid Prime is amazing, and they carry that formula over into 3D.
Yeah, but the conversion to 3D really didn't do its justice.
Right. Well, Metroid Prime was really good for like the GameCube era, but then they tried making Metroid the Other M, which was like really, really bad. And it was because it wasn't necessarily because the game itself was really bad, because the game was made by like, I can't remember what it's like either Team Ninja or Ninja Theory, but they're the ones who make Ninja Gaiden. Yeah. And they were like the developers for that. And they're good developers. Like they can make a game. Like the game wasn't bad. It was just like the way they handled Samus, and they like made her like this like subservient woman who like could only like listen to her captain. and like Samus is supposed to be like a bad bitch, you know.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why
she's
a lot of people didn't like that game. And then Nintendo's just like, screw it, we're just not even making Metroid now, even though it's like one of our hallmark franchises. Like, we got Animal Crossing.
yeah. Oh my God, Animal Crossing. I absolutely hate that game. I've never understood
It's
the
sold
appeal.
20 million copies though.
Yeah,
20 million copies. The
20
new
million,
Animal Crossing.
20
So that
million
you can
copies for a game where you can build a city
you
as
can
an
not even a
animal.
city, man. You can go fishing and catch rare fish. That's the biggest thing about it.
Fishing Simulator 2020.
Nintendo in their fishing, man. I can't. I don't know what it is.
I don't know, but why does every game nowadays feel like it has to have a crafting system of some sort? I've never understood this.
Yeah, I think a lot of games don't benefit from that. It can get
Yeah.
really shoehorned in. I felt like a lot of the crafting in Far Cry games was really shoehorned in.
Yeah, it's like, well, we need a crafting system. Go kill 3 pigs and you get an upgraded ammo pouch.
Yeah,
Why? What? Why? Okay, whatever. Fine game.
I
And
feel
then,
like crafting works well in RPGs, but
yeah, but
developers feel like adding RPG elements to games makes the game better, and like just by virtue of having RPG elements, the game is automatically better. Their 3D action game, and that's just not how it works. And it just like really pads stuff out. I think Ubisoft is the worst offender for this stuff. Their games have way too much extra padding
yeah.
in them,
Well, I mean,
and
look
like
at all the Assassin's Creed climbing towers, all that fun stuff. I mean,
yeah,
every Ubisoft game has some form of climbing puzzle. Look at
and like those games have crafting in them. Assassin's Creed, like, why does Assassin's Creed have crafting in it? It shouldn't have crafting in it.
that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I haven't played the newer
No.
Assassin's Creed. I haven't
They're
played any
they're
of the
like
new ones.
the new ones. I don't like them at all. Some people, it's like you love it or you hate it. Like some people swear like these are the best games I've ever played. But I liked the old Assassin's Creed games where it was about stealth and the story and assassinating people. The story was always weird, but I mean it was like campy and kind of interesting. But now they're just like these huge action RPG, like 80-hour long games with like a ton of grinding and stuff. And it's like this isn't really like where grinding it should be. Like these
No.
games should be like 12-hour long, very streamlined.
Well,
It's
I
like you're
mean,
just adding it to add it.
like if you look at like Valheim, not Valheim, Valhalla. I got Valheim on the brain. I can't get over it. But if you look at Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that game, and I don't know, it looks insanely interesting just for the combat side of it. Because it takes it out of the assassin, which I don't understand where the assassin's part of that game comes into play.
There is no assassins part of that game.
Yeah, like that's what I was
There is
figuring.
not.
It's you're storming. Like, why didn't they just come up with a new concept for a game and call it Viking or something like that?
It's because of the brand recognition, I think, and I feel like they don't know
Maybe.
what to do with Assassin's Creed. Like, so, the Assassin's Creed Odyssey was the same way. You know, it was just Greek simulator. It wasn't really Assassin's Creed. Like, it's like they have the assassination in there like a little bit, but it's like they have skill trees now, and you can play ranged or melee or stealth, and you can really do it any way you want. And I mean, I think that that's a cool idea for a game, but not for an Assassin's Creed game, because Assassin's Creed games are supposed to like
Because you
at least have
lose
a
the
heavy stealth element. It doesn't need
yeah.
to be all stealth, but like when you take that away, I feel like you're removing the soul of the franchise.
Yeah, because there is no assassin to it. It's literally just storm the gates. Let's go.
Yeah,
It, I don't know. It hurts because it's just like, okay, just make a new game. You're gonna get the recognition anyway because you're a bigger developing team. You've got the money to market.
yeah. Like they
Why?
had no problem turning Watch Dogs into a huge franchise. Like
Yeah, and
that
that
was
game.
great.
Oh
That was
my
new.
god, that game got some bad rapport.
Yeah,
Bad,
but
and
it's still
they.
sold millions of copies,
Yeah.
and it's still doing well. And Watch Dogs 2 is, I think, supposed to be a lot better.
Well, Watchdog Legions is a lot better because you can
Oh
literally.
yeah, that's it. Whatever the new one is.
Yeah, that one you can take control of literally anybody in the game. and they all have their own kind of perk that they can bring into a setting. Like, for instance, you can take over a grandma and she can blend in with something, and I guess it's weird, but it's a cool concept. Anybody that's an NPC in that game, you can take control of. And it's awesome. I think that's fantastic. And they did it really well with technical limitations of something like that. But the original Watch Dogs was literally just, I need to get rich, I'm hacking all these people's phones and taking all of their stuff. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that they should continue the franchise under Assassin's Creed if they're just going to be making historical games based on
Yeah,
Greeks
it's just
or
like an excuse to make historical games, but I mean, you don't need an excuse to make historical games. People love that stuff.
yeah, look at the Call of
Like,
Duty series. Oh my God. Look at Battlefield. All of those are based on historical battles. You could do that very easily with Vikings. Very easily. They had so many battles.
yeah,
So many. And then, like, honestly, here's a sour subject for people. Talking about Vikings, that brings me up to sailing and water battles. I am not a huge fan of Sea of Thieves.
I don't like that game at all.
Like, a lot of people are,
I
and I like the concept
that
behind
game
it.
it's just fetch quest and cosmetic grind. That's all it is.
Yeah. Well, it's not even really that. I could get past all the fetch quests and stuff if, like, the ship battles and stuff in that game are what really drew me to it. But I'm not a huge fan of the way that they took the art style. They took it way too cartoonish for the literal slaughter that you're doing. Because a player rolls up and you destroy their ship and then you take all their loot and then you get out. What part of that says, hey, I need to be a big bumbling buffoon that looks blocky and cartoony? Nothing. That should be a super realism game.
I mean, it's because they had Rare make it, and Rare has their style,
Yeah.
and their style isn't gritty realism. Their style is the cartoony sort of fun vibes. And I don't know, I feel like they could have made it work with that art style because pirates can be cartoony. There's just a lot of stuff that they messed up with that game. When that game came out, people were calling it No Man's Sea because it was
nothing.
there's nothing in it, and it was so overpromised, just like No Man's Sky.
Yeah.
I don't know if the game has turned around since then, because this was like 2 years ago that the game came out, and like No Man's Sky, they turned around and made it into something good, supposedly.
I refuse to buy that game. After I saw
I
the
don't, I
initial,
don't,
like, I don't like games that release with a third of their content.
oh yeah, me neither. But supposedly it got turned around, so I don't know. Maybe Sea of Thieves has been turned around. I know people who play it. I think it's good for a more casual audience that's looking for like an MMO light experience that they can play with
Yeah.
their friends on Xbox. But for like me and my tastes, like I could never play a game like that.
No, I mean, I could. I mean, if I had a group of friends that I played with, but if I went in solo, I would be so bored. But
I couldn't, even with a group of friends, I really need engaging gameplay. Like
yeah,
I took like a personality quiz about what kind of gamer I am, and I basically got the masochist one. So like I always need like a really hard engaging challenge. And
Dark
if your
Souls.
game is kind of, yeah, like I got like that was exactly my type of game. So like my favorite types of social games are games that are really hard and like you have to work together with teamwork. Like I used to like, playing shooters competitively where you have to like call out the locations and stuff. And like nowadays, like I like really playing Monster Hunter, which is a really hard game. Um, and it's like I need to be engaged when I'm playing. And a lot of games they're like simulators with friends, and I can't get into that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but I really don't categorize myself in really any kind of specific game because I like crafting games. I like, city builders. I like high paced games. Recently, I've been on a kick of wanting to play higher paced games, But then you have like those outliers that I really want to play, is like Escape from Tarkov, where it's not a high-paced game at all. It keeps you engaged because you're constantly on alert and thinking about things that could happen that you're constantly looking for, but it's also very slow paced because you have to take it slow. You can't run through it because it's all realistic bullet damage and things like that, and you could, one misstep could get you killed and you lose all your stuff. So that, while I understand the whole need for high pace, I do not like games that feel punishing. And Dark Souls is one of those games to me. I can play it. Do I enjoy it? No, because I'll probably end up breaking my keyboard. So that's one of those games for me. Rage games. Oh my god. Rage games, like Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy.
Oh my god. That game is such a meme.
It's so bad though. Yeah.
It's such good content though.
Yeah, but I tried to play it on my Twitch channel and I had to stop because I was getting enraged at some of the most simple mechanics. Swing a hammer, it hooks on things, pull yourself up. Pretty easy, but I was getting so enraged on that game that I had to just stop. I had to walk away because I couldn't handle the amount of fury that it was going, and I didn't want to break my stuff. So I was like, nope, I quit. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I haven't played it since. I own it. It's downloaded. Just not playing it. So I don't know.
Played
Oh, you went all digital.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, your camera locked up, but
is my camera still locked?
Yep. Nope. What happened?
I turned it on and off.
Oh boy, it's my internet that's dying for some reason. There we go.
Yeah. How is it now?
It's not liking the fact that I'm streaming right now, I can tell you that. 1 second. Getting solid connection. What's going on? Oh no. Might be my Windows update. No. Not receiving enough. Yeah, I know. Well, our podcast might be getting cut early because for some reason everything just decided to die. Let me do something really quick. This is one of the issues that I have with Streamlabs, is that it just decides that it wants to die randomly. It just takes every bit of stability it had and just shoves it down the drain like nothing happened.
Yeah, it sounds rough.
Well, I guess on that note, because my internet isn't wanting to handle, I guess we can end off here. Because it's just going to be constantly worse from here, so. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we're going to be doing with the podcast. We're not going to have any structure. We're not going to have any talking points. We're just going to come in here and bullshit with each other. So,
that's fine with me.
If you guys enjoyed what you did like and what you saw, then please hit the subscribe button and possibly give it a like and share it around so we can get this podcast off the ground. But until next time, we will see you all later. And Casey, say bye to everybody.
Peace out.
And we will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.